Okay, it's time to spoil this movie.
Yeah,
I am
let's spoil
excited
it.
for this. Let's go. What's up, AR fam? It is me, Sushant,
Hey, it's me, Luke.
and Luke and I just saw Salar Part One. If you haven't seen the non-spoiler review, that's obviously already on the channel. But if you've seen the movie, you want to hear some spoilery thoughts. Luke and I are ready to get into it. We have a
Yeah,
lot
let's do it.
to say about this movie. Luke,
Mhm.
begin.
Yeah, so the first part of the movie, it did a great job of setting up Solar himself and all that
Yes.
stuff, but I feel like it was just a little bit confusing. And it was mainly setting up the second part. So
I agree. I think there was it was interesting to know like there were a lot of elements that were like peppered in. It's like, oh, this is a friendship story, right?
నీకోసం ఎర్రైనవుతా సరైనవుతా నీ ఒక్కడి కోసం
But at the same time, then you don't see the friendship for like another 30 minutes after the initial intro. So it's like, okay, we know there's like a friendship thing lingering. We see Salar kind of like, the thing with the mom. We kind of see a lot of that going on.
ఇంకోసారి ఇలా చేస్తే
రేపటి నుంచి రానమ్మా.
And then we know about Kansar, like the land that's like secluded from everything else.
ఆ ప్రాంతం ఉందో లేదో తెలీదు కానీ దాని గురించి విన్నప్పుడు వచ్చే భయం మాత్రం నిజం.
Like we know about a lot of things. They're not quite gelling together always, but
right.
it is
But
it
we
is
know he's
setting
super
up.
cool.
Yes, but that's the thing, and ultimately we know Salar is super cool. That's really
Like
all
one of
that-
my favorite parts in that beginning is like he's like that woman, is about to get harassed.
I'm your owner. Hey, మంచి ప్రాపర్టీ తీసుకొచ్చావరా.
And he like grabs onto the pole and like smashes it.
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
really cool,
Yes.
But his mom
Yes.
had him on the leash, and that's
Yes.
why he couldn't do anything.
A very interesting dynamic. And to that point, you say that, and I'm like, wow, this movie just keeps getting bigger and bigger as it goes. It starts like this really small thing. It's just like a little wrestling match. And then it becomes this global scale event by the end of it. And
Yeah, like all of the armies from all over the world are coming here.
it's just relentless in that regard. And yeah, I mean that pole thing was amazing. Salar is dope. He's
Yeah.
in a word, Salar is dope. Yes.
Oh yeah, in a word. I think a really interesting dynamic too that we didn't necessarily talk about. Like there is that friendship dynamic of those two friends, but also like just Solar and his mother is like a very deep, and they've talked about that lots of times too.
Yes.
Like the reason why he killed that guy who was going to kill the girl, the
Yes.
Lord's son, is because they're saying that the girl reminds him of his mother, and that's why he's doing it, to protect his mother.
Right. It seems kind of like a typical, dare I say, like, the stone cold killer with like, the one love thing that sort of ties him to being
Yeah.
a human, kind of. And that is his mother in this situation, because Salar ultimately is like superhuman, as we especially learn towards the end. It's just like, yes, of course, he's like larger than life when he's fighting 20 guys at a time, but by the end, he's literally just superhuman.
Literally just yeah.
So it's nice to see. I see why that is kind of like the thing that's sort of meant to ground him a little bit. It is a trope that I guess we've seen a lot, but it makes sense. I feel like they do a good job of showing the dynamic between him and his mother. It's definitely a lot of a lot of very simple tension, a very protective mother that's like, hey, don't stay out too late. Obviously turn up to 11, but I kind of like the simplicity of their dynamic. Honestly.
Yeah, and like the school thing and all that. All right,
Yes.
so yeah, we've talked about the first part, and then it gets to a scene and it shows us part one. Like this is where the movie actually starts, And it
Yes.
goes into not, the rivalry between the friends, but how Solar comes back originally to after
Yes.
25 years to
Yes.
the big city.
It's, I mean, it is cool. It is a lot of like, I personally still felt a little bit confused as well initially in that bit because I'm like, oh, what are we focusing on? But
Right, what's happening now?
it was really interesting. There were a lot of like cool elements. Ultimately it is about Solar's journey, back to Kansar, and the way we pointed out the shot in our reactions, the way you have the little, Solar walking in, and simultaneously you see the younger Solar walking out.
అమ్మకి చెప్పొస్తా.
It's just a little touch.
Yeah, I was going
like
to talk
that I
about
think-
that. That's like a really big scene, that I keep thinking about.
It's a
little
really
callbacks that they have.
There's a lot of there's a lot of those. There's a lot of moments where like we see these flash forwards essentially of these visions of things that are going to happen in the later course of the movie as well. A lot of the fights that Solar is in and things like that still thematically feel relevant to what we're seeing. So it's kind of, the film does a good job of using like it's very distantly connected like visual things and stuff like that, and sort of connecting those together. Ultimately, I think it does a good job of calling upon itself. 100%.
And you mentioned how at the very beginning of the movie he was having that dream about killing people, and then later we see the axe in the chest. I think the movie did a great job of tying all that in together.
Yes.
A lot about him being a one-man army. That's super cool.
Of course.
But I admit I was towards that beginning part of that part one. There's a lot of there are lords and all this power dynamic and this one guy setting it all up, which needs to happen, I guess. But
sure, but yeah, it does happen at the expense of us feeling a bit confused, not just in terms of like what the information is, but what's important. I think that was a big thing.
But
is like
weighed down by all the information a little bit.
Yeah. But I will say, I mean, like what I can take away from this is the action sequences in and of themselves are phenomenal to watch. The sound design really makes you kind of squirm in many ways, but there are some shocking moments. Now we can kind of talk about them too. People have like limbs being cut off and things like that. It's very much like meant to shock and provoke a very strong response from you. It absolutely gets the job done. The way the action scenes are filmed too, it like presents Solar in this godlike way. Rightly so. And like the atmosphere around him is kind of, there's always like clouds and everything surrounding him.
Yeah, there's like dust moving, and stuff like that.
Everything's a little dirty and grungy, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I noticed they did a lot with color, and I really enjoyed that. Like, most of the city is pretty colorless and dark, but the kite, was that yellow red, and then once all the women got around with their red cloaks, that was like a very blood red chanting kind of thing to get to his death. And then the other color thing that I think of is at the very end when he gets covered in the blue, and his little marker gets covered in the blue.
Right.
So lots of color elements and adding that drama and that punch to it.
There is that element too when those they're not quite zombies. We said they're zombie-like characters because they just like kind of go after people really, and they're attracted to color red as well.
Drugged out, and
the way the red kind of pops in that scene too is really interesting. It really, like, yes, there is a lot of, ultimately those things are very stylistic. I'm not like sure I can fully extrapolate why those things are happening, but they kind of add to the general vibe. Even with the one of the things we mentioned in the non-spoiler that we can talk about a bit more in depth now is this form of editing that's very like trailer-esque, where it's like a beat with a lot of fade-ins and fade-outs very in quick succession, and this rising kind of music. they're like crescendos, but normally what we are used to in experiencing that, and that I think sort of feels natural, is like once you have that crescendo, you kind of come down. But it sort of uses it as like a way to transition into an even bigger scene, which kind of left me at a bit of a loss in certain moments. I'll be honest. I was like, I'm not like it feels like the dramatic conclusion has happened with the way things are cut and with the music.
Yeah.
But no, we're just starting. So it kind of like tugged me around a bit as well.
It kind of, at some points too, it felt like it just kept building, but we didn't have as much of that, release.
Yes, I agree.
And as you're saying with those intricate shots, there are a lot of interweaving things, but sometimes it was at the expense of understanding necessarily what was happening or what we're trying to focus on, what the focal point is.
Right. Absolutely. There were a couple of, oh yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say the story itself, we are kind of poo-pooing on it a little bit just with how confusing it was at points. But I really do think it was cool how, it's this violent city and it's in the middle of a ceasefire, right? When no one's supposed to fight anyone. So that contrast was really cool to watch.
Absolutely. There's a ton of lore too to this world that I think is so interesting. That's like, in terms of the inner functioning of the world with like the lords, what the Bangles mean, how that means they own territories and things like that.
You mentioned earlier, like Lord of the Rings.
Yes. It really was quite amazing to experience. That was really fun because then you kind of see how all of this flows, and I was really into that stuff. I really thought they presented a lot of that very well. Absolutely.
Yeah, world building for sure.
Yes, the world. Yes, and now to see the whole world get involved in part 2, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Let's
get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke, what other thoughts do you have?
I think that's about it. I am very excited to see part 2.
Me too.
And overall, I enjoyed the movie. I liked the hype. And I'm really interested to see what happens next.
Yeah, ultimately, my main takeaway too is just the two main stars, Prabhas and Prithviraj, are not just stars; they're larger than life in this movie, and I think they kick a lot of butt. They kick a lot of butt,
big time.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, all of you wonderful people watching, if you haven't seen any of our other videos, make sure to check those out. Like and subscribe, all the things. If you want to watch the movie with us, we have other movies as well. We've got lots of movies. You should just hang out,
get ton of movies,
watch movies with us.
Yes,
go to Patreon. Yeah. And if you would like to see us to see the second one and give a honest review, please let us know. We always love the love.
Yes. Awesome. All right, everyone. Goodbye, fam.
Bye.